what I'm talking about here is not dealing with something politically correct, but dealing with something with integrity. Doing what you know you need to do to save a life. So when we talk about this, you know, as a leader, do I put the question, do I place the interest of the people that I lead? I'll use the term my people. Do I place that interest above my own? Because if I do, I will maintain that integrity with the people, because they'll always know I'm there for them. I'm not there, let me put it another way. I'm there for them. I'm not there for them. Does that make sense? I once heard an old gentleman in a recording. He was a lad when Abraham Lincoln gave his Gettysburg Address. And the last lines of the Gettysburg Address, of the people, for the people, you know, all the people, by the people, for the people. Someone had read the address that day, and you know, they're doing a reenactment of the Gettysburg thing, and they interviewed this old gentleman, and he said, you know, he said everything went fine in the address that this person read up until they got to the last line, and he said they said it wrong. And the interviewer said, what do you mean they said it wrong? He said when they got to the last line, they said of the people, for the of the people, for the people, and by the people. They stressed the preposition. And the interviewer said, yes, okay. He said, Mr. Lincoln didn't do that. When Mr. Lincoln gave that address, he said, this government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. That's a totally different meaning than to say of the people, and for the people, and by the people. Think about it. Are you there for them, or are you there for them? If you're there for them, you're going to use them. If you're there for them, you're going to lead them. Just a thought. Okay? The question you have to ask yourself is, are you accountable? And that in a lot of people's circles today, accountability is a dirty word. It's a dirty word. I know I'm taking a lot of time with this one word, but this is because this is the foundation of all the words of influencer, being an influencer. Accountability is not a word signifying trouble. Most people think it is. Well, you have to be accountable. What does it mean to be accountable?
Responsible for your actions.
Well, you're right. It means to be responsible for your actions.
Account for what you've done. And there's love. Count up.
Yep.
And bring you to it. You have to count up what you've done.
Yeah, giving an account.
You reckon.
Right. Right.
Right?
Yep. Who holds you accountable?
We should hold ourselves accountable.
Thank you, sir.
It's your actions that make you accountable. So if you're diligent about it, you're good, and that's what you choose to do that. It's not something that just happens. You choose to do it.
If you are not a person of integrity, your boss holds you accountable. If you're not a person of integrity, you have people extraneous to you who watch you, who supervise you. Supervise, compound word, super being above, vise, visual. They're over you visually, watching, ruling, telling you when you're right, when you're wrong. That's not accountability. That's not accountability. That's being an employee. That's being a teacher-student. That's being a boss employee. But that's not accountability. Accountability is a very personal issue. Accountability, it's like the word discipline. Heard a minister say to someone yesterday, you have to discipline people. You have to be the disciplinarian. There are times you're going to have to discipline someone in the church. And I took issue with him. Not in an ugly way. What does the word disciple mean?
Follower.
Well, a follower. Actually, it means one who has chosen a discipline.
You discipline yourself.
Yeah. No one else in this world can discipline you. Why did John follow Jesus? Let's make it even simpler than that. He chose to. Why did Peter follow Jesus?
He chose to.
Why did Judas betray Jesus?
He chose to.
Why did Moses strike the rock the second time?
He chose to.
In all those cases, men either disciplined or failed to discipline themselves to follow the person they should be following. If I am a disciple of Dennis McCowan, I'm going to follow him. And by being his disciple, that means that whatever style of life I see him living, I choose to imitate that same style. Okay? I discipline myself because I am a disciple. If I'm forced to follow him, I'm a slave, not a disciple. But if I choose to follow him, I'm a disciple, and no one in this world can discipline me but me. Accountability is the same way. Accountability is really another word for self-discipline. So when we talk about accountability, are we accountable? Do we discipline ourselves to follow the rules, to live by the standards that we speak, that we put out, and we say this is the way that it needs to go? So we're talking about integrity. Let's move forward. What have I got? About 10 minutes? Tell me. It's 8:27. Tell me when do I need to?
How much more time do you need?
Well, I could take 4 or 5 days.
I know that. Yeah, let's go 10 minutes.
All right. The second one, when we look at the word influencer, the first letter is I, that's integrity. The second letter is N, and that means to nurture. If you're going to be a person of influence, you have to be a person of integrity, but you also need to be one who nurtures other people. What's one of the key qualities that we like to see in mothers? They need to be nurturers. They need to be nurturers. In fact, any husband worth his salt will realize that he needs a wife who will nurture him betimes. Now, if he's worth his salt, he will return that to her at times when she needs it. But all of us are in need of nurturing at some level. That's why all of us, no matter how high we might think we are in some position, we need somebody over us. We need somebody to whom we give an answer, to whom we demonstrate our accountability. You can call them an accountability partner, but that accountability was your own deal. When I went back to work on my master's degree, my Master of Arts in Organizational Management, I called Charles Kelly, who was the district superintendent in the Assemblies of God in North Carolina, and spoke with him. I said, will you be my accountability partner? And he and I discussed what accountability was. And he said, I'll be happy to. Well, he's not the one who came and checked on me all the time. I'm the one who went to him on a periodic basis and said, sir, this is where I am. This is what I'm accomplishing. This is the grade I'm making. That's accountability. I did that to myself. Now, anybody, if you have a comment or anything, just throw a hand up or shout out. So that's accountability. I choose that for myself. Nurturing, we all need that. And the greatest place to find nurturing is to find someone with whom we're openly honest. As an influencer, as a leader, if I'm a person of integrity, I build that trusting relationship, and in building that, that person will open themselves up to being nurtured. You can't nurture somebody by grabbing them in a headlock and running them through the door. That's not called nurturing. That's that force issue we talked about earlier. Nurturing someone is to help them understand why they need to go through the door and to turn them in that direction, to help them turn, and to guide them, to lead them so that they realize within themselves the importance of doing that. They might not understand it at first, but if you nurture them, you will gently move that person into a place of following along, of doing what they need to do, not for themselves, or not for you, but for themselves. But so it's so important. When we talk about nurturing, there's some statements that we look at here. The height of your influence upon others depends upon the depth of your concern for them. Now, the word concern is the word that comes out with the Maxwell documents. I don't like the word concern because it is too closely akin to worry and care. In fact, in the Greek language, the word care and worry all come from the same word. So I don't like that. Well, what word would you use? I think of them as highly as I think of myself. What would I do in that situation? For my own advantage, for my best good. And then I try to help that person come to that point of doing the same thing. But still, we'll go with the word concern. You have to understand that the height of your influence depends upon your depth of concern. It's often said in leadership, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. That's a little statement that comes off this. Many leaders love their position more than their people. I've seen that. That has been the downfall of more organizations than just about anything else. They love their position more than they love their people. And when that happens, their position, or they soon lose their position. Few leaders love their people more than their position. A few. Those who do strengthen their position. Let me read you this about achievers. Nice guys get the best results from subordinates, according to a study that by the research outfit Telemetrics International, supported by the Wall Street Journal. Of 16,000 executives studied, 13% identified as high achievers tended to care more about people as well as profits. Average achievers concentrated on production. Low achievers were preoccupied with their own security. Think about that. When we see people, well, look at the picture there that they have, nurturing. The story is told of a man who went to visit his son in prison. His son was convicted of murder, and in fact, it was the day before his execution. And when they asked the man to be executed what he would like to do, he said, I'd like to just walk outside. I know I'll be under guards, under gun, but I'd like to walk outside with my father. And so they permitted it. And they walked around. They were going by some trees, and the young man that was going to be convicted, or had been convicted, was going to be executed. He walked by a sapling, maybe this tall. He says, look at this, Dad. He just bent that sapling over quite easily. And he goes on, and it's trees that have been planted over time, and he goes to another one a little larger, and he keeps bending them over. He finally comes to a tree that's pretty tall, but he can still shake it at least. And he comes to one that he pounds, he kicks, he can't even shake it. And his father said, son, what is all this about? He said, Father, I wish you had taken a hold of me back there, when you could treat me gently and move me, rather than wait until I was large, nearly full grown, and have to handle me with force. That's what nurturing is. Nurturing is handling someone with a gentility and with a love and a compassion that does not require force. So we talk about nurturing something. Nurturing people does not mean needing people. Okay? How many of us understand that we don't live in this earth alone? How many of us understand that in this earth, well, if I'm going to make it through the day, I have need of interaction with certain people. I don't manufacture gas. So I have need of some people doing some work. I don't manufacture electricity. Listen, I don't even cook sausage and grits. But she does. Okay. So I'm in a place in my life where if I'm going to succeed at what I'm doing, I am aware that I need other people around me. But needing people does not mean that I am going to nurture them. I don't see the people who produce the electricity. I don't see the people who manufacture the gas. Nowadays, service stations are self-service. There was a time when you pulled up and they ran out and high test or regular, fill her up, check your fluid, they did all that. Not anymore. Now you pump your own gas and it's a whole lot more expensive, but we understand that. But we need somebody out there. But the interesting thing is the people that I need are not the ones I nurture. We have to realize that nurturing people does not mean needing people. Okay? Understand this, folks. Don't nurture the people you need. The people that you need in your life should already be mature enough to help provide what you need. What we need to be doing is nurturing that generation who will be the suppliers at the next level. Is this making sense? Okay. Nurturing people does, however, mean commitment to people. If you're going to take somebody on to be a nurturer to them, understand you're in for a job. It's not overnight. And nurturing people does mean loving people. Okay? And one more thing, nurturing people does mean lifting people to a higher level. What do you do when you plant a tomato and it gets to about this height?
Stake out.
You put a stake with it, or you put a cage around it. Why? Yeah. Support the weight. What happens when that tomato gets this tall?
Tied up some more.
You tied up some more. I had some last year that were this tall. Big tomato plants, much taller than I was. You have to stake them up. They're going to produce fruit, and that fruit, just the limbs alone, will cause them to bow over because they're full of water. It's a weighty stem on a tomato plant. But if you're going to have fruit on that plant that's not going to be eaten up by the bugs, you need to tie that plant up one level at a time. It is a commitment that requires lifting up so that you can produce fruit from that tomato plant that it was designed to produce. Understand this, and I'll close, and next week or the next time we do this will be our concluding time. I think we'll be able to get through the rest of them because that's where I'm going to jump right in is here. When we nurture people, we are not bringing something out of them that they don't already possess. We are helping them to produce what God designed them to produce. And so for a leader, it's imperative for us to recognize in that person what does it appear they have to offer. We need to see some potential and then begin to nurture that and bring it out of them. Any questions?